Is 7:05 by my watch, and it's a special meeting of council held on Tuesday, February the 16th. I am in council chambers, as is municipal coordinator Carla Duarte and CFO Pam Rook. And we have a part of our executive staff online. They'll come in shortly. And Councillor Barmeer is absent this evening. And I'm calling the meeting to order. And I'm putting forward the motion to adopt the agenda. I'll put that forward. Can I have a second? And I'll ask the CAO if he has any amendments.
Yes, I do. We need to add a closed meeting after the open under section 91E. Which is sale or disposition of land or improvements.
And I have all the verbiage on that. I'll read it out.
All right, and you might also just add, for the sake of it, 92B, which is discussions with provincial officials.
Could you send that to me, please? Thank you. Thank you very much, CAO DeJong. Any other amendments, CAO?
I think report out if applicable and move the adjournment down the list.
Thank you very much. All right. I'll call the motion. All those in favor of the agenda as amended, please advise yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And then next up is public participation. And I think we have a few members of the gallery on. And I see from the gallery that's here, you've been on before. 2 minutes. The municipal coordinator will time you. If you could time yourself to approximately the 2 minutes, we'll give you some leeway. I wish my eyesight was better, but I'm not sure whose hand is up, but I see one. I see two. We'll fight it out as to who unmutes first, and then you'll go live.
Looks like David Shore.
Mr. Shore, if you could unmute, then we'll go live with you.
Hi, thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
My point is just regarding the utility user rates and the bylaws, or the motion that's before, or will be before council coming up. I just want to maintain a position that I and many others have requested, and even I believe one councillor has requested, to maintain the utility rates and the taxation in general at a 0% increase at this time. I assume that the rates that are proposed are the 3% increase that that I've seen before in the minutes, for example. And if so, then my request is that we maintain the tax rates at 0%. And unless anyone has any questions, that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shore. Is there another from the gallery who would like to participate? If you would, please unmute and we'll get you live. Mr. Sredsky, can you unmute? You're live, Mr. Sredsky.
Yes, unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
You're live and we can hear you.
Brilliant. Mr. Mayor, you were asked to multiple times by many residents to correct our village growing spending problem, but you continue to ignore it. Obtaining a grant is obligation of municipal mayor. You are sworn and paid by residents to do so. You and your administrator were asked to provide Kevin Grove residents with historical info on Lions Bay grant application for sewage, new sewage plant. So far, you failed to provide any material information. That is resulting in approximately $1,500 annual payment per household just for a sewage levy for next 10 years. You're proposing to sell village properties such problematic lots, parking lot, tennis court, 6 that we know, perhaps more. Plug-in duplexes dwellings between our residential homes. That includes sale and rezoning of land and at the intersection of Ocean View, Highview Place, next to a family property recently purchased. All that without public consultation. You continue to review the topic of sale of land in closed council meetings. We are living in super vulnerable times that require democratic and sensible act. You hold a self-appointed position and clearly getting less and less residential support. We must protect our village and our properties, so we're asking you to resign. I would like you to know that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sredsky. Carl? Firstly, thank you very much for your, actually, we'll see if there's anybody else before I go to it to respond. I don't see anybody else at this moment. Although if you'd like to unmute, we'd be welcome to have you with us. There being none, Mr. Sredsky, my response is fairly limited. Many of the points you make have been asked and answered many times over many council meetings, so I can't answer what we've already answered. And I can tell you that there are more emails coming to you in the next day or so from the CAO and from Councillor Bain, who is tasked to respond back to you. As for your belief that I drive the sale of properties in the village, I am one of 5 votes in the council. I drive nothing other than what my colleagues by majority do. Which brings us to the last point. Sir, I will not resign. And I believe that we are in the right path with respect to where the village's finances are going. Thank you very much for your participation. Which brings us to item number 4. Councillor Abbott, you have a
Chair,
comment.
to Mr. Shaw's request, when we get to page 27 and that item, I would like to ask that I can propose option 2 as a motion. Hopefully I'll get a second and motivate one last time for that, if that's acceptable. And then I'm sure someone else intends to propose option 1 if I'm defeated. Is that acceptable?
CAO, can you give me the thread of this? So we're not ready to jump from public participation into motions or diving into the minutes to delve into a motion. What would be appropriate here when we get down to the bylaws?
I think, sorry, I think the intent of Councillor Abbott's comment is just simply to let one of the members of the audience know that he might want to stick around to listen to the debate. I'm not sure there was anything more intended by that. Councillor Abbott, maybe correct me if I'm wrong.
No, nothing more intended other than just that we don't rush through and someone proposes option 1 and I don't get a chance to propose option 2. Just hoping on a point of order, I get a chance to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so then we are down to item number 4, which is review and approval of minutes of the prior meeting of Feb 9. I'll put forward the motion that the minutes are acceptable. May I have a second? We'll go to discussion and any changes. Thank you very much, Councillor Abbott. It's open for discussion and changes on this.
I have one change under 5D in my response to Mr. Shore in regards to the trail.
Yes.
It stated that I felt unsafe using a stroller. That's not in fact correct. It is actually impassable by a stroller. So if somebody has a stroller that was built to take that trail, I'd love to see it, but it is simply not stroller friendly.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Bain, any changes, amendments, additions?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. I'll scroll down to, there's nothing really significant. There was one thing where it was, oh yeah, on page 14 of 36 at 10:50 p.m. The meeting was extended to 11 p.m. I see that as sort of a conflict of time because thereafter there's some mentions. Councillor Cunliffe came back to the meeting at 9:55, and there's a few other things. I was just wondering if that's just a typo or is it in the wrong place?
Municipal coordinator.
I think that should be 9:50, I think.
That seems more accurate to my thinking.
Back here.
I believe that's correct. I think I jumped the gun by an hour, if I recall, and we went on the right hour.
Okay.
Okay, so amended, Councillor Bain.
Okay, and there's just one, it looks like there's a wrong word there on page 18 of 36 under item 15A. CIO De Jong clarified that the access to the property, if not from above, and that I think you meant was is not from above. Am I mistaken on that?
No, that sounds about right.
Okay.
So amended, thank you.
Okay, well, that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Councillor Abbott, any changes?
Just one comment on the minutes. Page 8 at the bottom, Member McLaughlin declared a conflict of interest. I think it's recorded accurately the reason for the conflict of interest. I'm not sure that was actually said in the meeting, but I think the way it's recorded is accurate reflection of what the reason for the conflict of interest in relationship with the chair of the PAC committee.
Correct.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cunliffe, any other changes?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll call a motion. All those in favor of the minutes as amended, please confirm.
Aye.
I,
All right.
All in favor, thank you very much. Business arising from the minutes. I have two things, and just give me a second to make sure I have it. I'm going to comment on two pieces, and this is on page 5 and 6 of 36. And in particular, something in response to Mr. Sredsky, Mr. Shore, and Mayor Broughton. The first one, I think my recollection, although it's not part of the minutes, was that Mr. Shore made a comment along the lines that the stairs were expensive. And that I believe and I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, that he had significant experience in doing this kind of work. And it was his view that they probably could have been, although his aim was to reduce spending as much as possible, and I agree with that entirely. I believe it was his view that they could have been done for about $20,000. We cannot lose this kind of valuable resource in our village. And I'm going to ask the Public Works Manager if we have another structural opportunity that Mr. Shore is notified of that. And as long as he qualifies as a contractor, that he be put on the bid basis. Can that be done, Public Works Manager?
Sure.
Thank you very much. The second one, and this goes along the lines of Mr. Sredsky and Mayor Broughton. Just to recap and put the dots in perspective so that we all know what we're talking about. The village did everything we could to keep the sewage treatment plant going. But in our view, the cost of repairs were getting too steep. And it was our view that we were putting good money after bad. The first of the 4 packs, which is the guts of the plant, were blown and had to be replaced. And that was an estimated $150,000. The motor was damaged, that's another $50,000. And the chain and gears were $25,000 and had to be replaced with no guarantee that the second, third, or fourth media packs would not blow in the next few years. This is a key point to those who've been on the Zoom for a while. Notwithstanding that there were no grants available at the time, we did not have time to wait for a potential grant opportunity to come up. We thought we were going to have to comply with the new wastewater treatment regulations from the Ministry of Environment. Eventually, we were able to persuade the Ministry of Environment to let us do a like-for-like replacement of our outdated rotating biological contactor, which is RBC in the terminology, treatment system. We now have a new plant very similar to the old one in terms of the technology, but about twice as efficient as the old one. The price at just over $1 million is significantly less than what it would have cost us to replace with the more advanced technology. Staff estimates this in the $3 to $6 million range. Grants for wastewater treatment plants were not available at the time, but regardless of timing, would not have supported a plant with this older technology. So even if we had been able to apply for a grant for a newer technology plant, able to treat waste to a higher standard under the regulations, we still would have been paying as our share, at least what we paid for our new RBC and probably a fair bit more. As to grants themselves, I have addressed the community previously and stated many times that they are invariably underfunded, oversubscribed, and usually the time between the grant submission and an outcome of advice is a minimum of 1 year. Competition is fierce. There were no grants available that would have funded the like-for-like replacement of our wastewater treatment plant. I'm sure the gallery and our residents believe council is responsible and our administration would have retroactively applied for a grant if there was any chance of success to an application. There is none. The government wants to be a participant in the decision-making for infrastructure grants and has no interest in a project that has already started or is completed. The residents at Kelvin Grove and those who have given us their opinion as to our path chosen should take comfort that we have negotiated a like-for-like plant at a greatly reduced cost compared to an upgrade. The project was finished on time and on budget. A parcel tax is deferrable, and this parcel tax, unless paid in full upfront, will be funded over 10 years at a very low rate of interest. I believe that should answer many of the questions that the gallery has posed over the last month or so. For the next item, is there any other unfinished business or business arising from the councillors? The minutes? There being none, we'll move on. Unfinished business? There is none. Reports, staff? None. Mayor, none. Council members? For those in the gallery, I think Councillor Bain, your infrastructure committee meets on Thursday.
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Committees, I don't think we have anything to report other than I did attend the 50th anniversary committee. They have some ideas and they're meeting again before the council meeting of March the 2nd, and they should have an adjusted budget and put forth some ideas for council to consider. Emergency services, there being none. Resolutions, there being none. Bylaws. 9A is the Kelvin Grove wastewater treatment plant parcel tax, and that's on page 21 of your packages. And I will read that and ask for a second, and then we'll go to discussion. And
if I can interrupt you for a second, I think Councillor Cunliffe probably wants to say something at this point.
Yes, I will recuse myself from this portion. Carla, if you could please put me in the waiting room, and I'll be there to come back when discussion is completed.
And that's on the same, you're recusing yourself on the same basis as previously with respect to conflict of interest, being a resident of Kelvin Grove and affected parcel owner, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. Sorry, I'm multiple screens here. I didn't pick you up. Thank you very much, CEO, to John for noticing that. The motion is that the Kelvin Grove wastewater treatment plant parcel tax bylaw number 586, 2021 be adopted. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second? And then we'll go to discussion.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. We're in discussion, CIO or CFO. Did you want to make any comments on this?
Not at this time.
I think for the council members, it's on page 21. I think we've gone over this.
Just a point of clarity. I think I heard Mr. Shredsky suggest that the amount payable per year by affected parcel owners was something like $1,500, but in fact, the amount is $1,049 per year.
That is correct, and that's dead center in the middle of the page 21. All right, council members, I'm trying to move along here. If there's a discussion, this is the time.
Yeah, it's just I'm curious about something on page 22 of 36 regarding the parcel tax roll review panel. Are we at that point right now, or should I bring it up later?
No, that'll be at the end of the agenda. It's you have to adopt the bylaw before you can appoint the review panel.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right, councillors, last chance for discussion. I'm going to call a motion in a second. There being no hands up, I will call a motion. All those in favor, please confirm by aye.
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 And I'm aye as well. Thank you very much. So that is passed. Next up is and we can let Councillor Conloff back in. And let's wait for her. And there she is. Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. You're back with us now. We are on item 9B, and that's the utility user rates amendment bylaws 587, 588, and 589. And we'll do this one at a time. So I will put forward the motion that that water rates and regulations bylaw number 2, 1971, amendment bylaw number 587, 2021 be adopted. I'll ask for a second. I'm putting forward that motion. I'll ask for a second and go to discussion. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you very much. Discussion. Councillor Abbott, this is your chance.
Thank you. I'd like to propose and put forward a motion that we take option 2, rescind the third readings, amend the bylaw further, and read for a third time. And I would like to suggest that that amendment is to go to 0% increase. And I know that we've discussed this, and the majority have already decided to go with the 3% increase. But some sort of research that I've done since the last meeting has brought up and made me aware of a few interesting methodologies other municipalities have used to draw down on the COVID restart funds. I noticed that a couple of the municipalities, Penticton, kind of used the money on the financial stabilization funds, which if they didn't, they were going to have to tax for, so effectively reduced their taxes. Campbell River did something similar to make a small change on their taxes. But the most noticeable one was Prince George, who the council, the staff asked for a 2.7% increase in their utility rates. And the council originally approved that, but they were given the opportunity to decide how much of the COVID relief money they would use to offset it. And after much debate, and I read a few reports on this and some of the councillors' comments, after much debate, they decided to use 50% of their $6 million, half of it, in order to make the increase this year 0%. So my question to the other councillors, if we had believed this was an opportunity for us, and we could have used the COVID relief fund to offset our tax increases, would that have changed? And if someone believes it's worth further discussion, I would like to put forward that motion.
Well, there's a motion on the floor. So if there's to be a discussion of another motion, you've got to do something with the motion that's on the floor, either voting on it or somebody could move to table it.
So was exactly the circumstance I was alluding to at the beginning of the meeting when I asked if I had this
sorry,
opportunity.
I didn't jump in quickly enough. Sorry, Councillor Abbott. But I think it can be resolved by if somebody wishes to have that discussion, put forward a motion to table the motion on the floor to have or as part of the discussion. I mean, really what you're asking is whether or not consideration of what others appear to have done, and I say appear because I think there's more to it than what is available on the internet. Would that change anyone's perspective in terms of how to deal with utility rates? I don't know that you need to put forward a motion for an alternative, the alternative option listed in the report. I think the discussion that you want to have is one that pertains to, can be discussed in the context of the motion that's on the floor as a different perspective with respect to information that you would like to share and have a discussion about. Whether or not the other councillors wish to have that discussion or engage in that discussion can be done within the context of the motion that's on the floor. I don't think you need to do anything with it other than start having the conversation. But I would ask that you provide an opportunity for the CFO to provide comment. And there may be comment pertaining to this subject matter which might have to actually be taken into closed, but most of it can probably be held in open. Depends on how it goes, I suppose.
So
Thank you very
why don't
much.
we do that and ask the other councillors if they believe that information would cause them to want to rethink?
Councillor Abbott, I won't table the motion, but I understand the spirit of where you're going. And I think that ultimately, if the motion, which has already had a first and second on it, if depending on what the information the CFO provides, and you've given us some thoughts too, if you're comfortable with that, the vote will be the vote, and either your what would have been a proposed amendment would be accepted or it won't. So rather than tabling or that, if you're up with having the discussion, listening to the CFO's piece, you're welcome to add in any more that you have. Ultimately, it comes down to the vote. So if that's fine with you, that's how I would suggest we proceed.
Well, I mean, it is new information. So I was wanting to hear from the other councillors, but if they don't want to speak first, but I'd really like to hear if this was available to us, would it have made a difference?
I believe,
previously.
Councillor Abbott, we're still in the discussion period here.
If I may, I think that the key point here is that there was a great big if in that sentence you just spoke, Councillor Abbott. I think it would be prudent to listen to what the CFO has to say.
Well,
if I may, if I can offer a comment here, I'm finding Councillor Abbott's comment is intriguing. Like I hadn't thought for a moment that the money that we receive from the provincial government could be used in this way. But if we could, and it paid for the increase, I think it's worth having another look at it. In other words, the net effect would be that to the taxpayers, it would be a zero increase, but in reality, it would still be the 3%, and the 3% would be covered off by this fund. I would like to know from the CFO if that is actually doable.
So that is the point that Councillor Abbott's making. And why don't we just stop here from the councillor side and hand the floor over to the CFO Rook.
So in very simple terms, we cannot bring that money into income and lower taxes. And I know because I asked that question within 24 hours of finding out about this grant. I asked that specific question and I got an unequivocal no. And that is the answer that other municipalities have been getting. Basically, what they said is you cannot use the funds to pay directly for capital, because I asked if you could use it for capital as well, or reduce tax rates. And if you do, it may influence future funding decisions for the municipality, although a clawback mechanism for this funding is not currently on the table. So this happened very, very quickly. And originally, they had said the grant was unconditional, that's why I asked the question, because we only received one unconditional grant, and that's a small community grant for about $300,000 a year. We get that money every June. It goes directly into, basically into our income. So you can see from our budget, our funding sources are the smart community grant, property taxation, and utility fees. And once we collect that money, we can pretty much do whatever we want with it, as long as it's been budgeted. So I think the confusion is arising. Prince George in particular, I saw an article a couple of months ago where it was a newspaper article, to be fair, but they were saying how much they were reducing taxation through use of the COVID grant. But when you read further into the article, what they were actually doing is what is allowed. And basically what we can use the grant for is to offset 2020. They're allowing us to go back retroactively and 2021 COVID-related expenses and lost revenue. But it cannot just be taken into income to reduce taxes. And I've also spoken to our auditors, and we have to report how we're using this grant. So basically, for 2020, 2021, and 2022, they expect us to expend it over those 3 years. As part of the financial statements now, we have to show our grant was $603,000, how we spent it. And it can be at a very high level. We can use it for lost revenue. So my plan for 2020 is to use part of the grant that I have calculated would be the revenue we would have got from Lions Bay Beach Park and Kelvin Grove Beach Park if it had been open. And I also sent another specific question, was granted permission to use it for staff time that was spent on COVID tasks. And what's unusual about that, they're allowing us to use staff time, even though it was part of the regular pay. It doesn't have to be overtime. So that'll be the use in 2020. And then an example of 2021, and I think this is kind of what the other municipalities are doing, but it's not being explained correctly. If council decides that they want to increase the bylaw enforcement officers' hours beyond what we normally budget, then that extra amount, we can put it into budget as an expense, and then I can draw from the COVID fund to pay for that. And if decisions are made about perhaps not opening some of the parking lots, again, we could draw in some for the revenue that we're losing, but there has to be a direct correlation to COVID. You cannot just bring it into income. So I went back to re-examine the Prince George one, and it did surprise me a bit the way it's been worded, but again, it's a newspaper article. It's not the actual council report, which I read. And I think maybe what they're saying is, like, we could say, would have been the tax rate if we had to pay for the bylaw enforcement officers, and we would have lost some revenue. But because we're able to pull from the COVID grant, this is actually what our tax rate is. And then just to show it's not just me, we're a member of the Government Finance Officers Association, and there's been a lot of confusion, especially for smaller municipalities who didn't lose a lot of revenue about how to use this money. And there's a huge forum there's probably 50 questions on it now, and the ministry is answering these questions. And it's very clear, you cannot just bring it into income and reduce your utility fees or reduce your tax. And I've even pulled West Vancouver's report because I have been in contact with Bowen Island, Squamish, and West Vancouver. And on different courses I've been on, we're trying to kind of think of different imaginative ways we can use the money, but stay within the rules. And this is a quote from the CFO of West Vancouver's report to council, January 18. Using the grant to lower 2021 taxes is not acceptable. The grant may only be used for new temporary costs which support the municipality to move forward. So I know it's challenging because you see different things that different municipalities are doing, but when you drill down, I mean, the rules are clear. I've heard it from our auditors. I have to actually report this on the financial statement. And I've heard it very black and white from the ministry that we cannot use it to reduce taxation. So in terms of water, there weren't really any COVID-related expenses. But in terms of property taxes, when I bring forward that budget, and it will really flow from the parking plan, once council gives staff direction on the parking plan and the different items we want, I think we'll find a fair number of them can be funded with the COVID money.
Thank you very much, CFO Rook. To my colleagues, do you have any specific questions to CFO Rook?
Yeah, I do. So let me just understand exactly what you said, Pam, from a slightly different angle. Well, first of all, if you go read the provincial websites and the frequently asked questions, they actually say there that they will not be auditing the use of this tax, but you're right, but you have to report it. So you have to report it, but no one's, it's almost like an honor system, right? Report it, do it according to the rules, but they're not going to come audit it or clawback. There's no clawback provisions. So what I'm hearing you say going forward in our municipal taxes and the future budget considerations, you're going to be able to show us where using the COVID relief money funded, for the lack of a better word, a particular item, and then they will not carry on through to the bottom line and increase our budget and then be taxed for. So effectively what we're doing is we are actually maybe not reducing taxes, but we are pointing out that we don't need to go for a tax increase that we might needed to have done. And I think when I read what Prince George was doing, it's kind of what they were saying. Even referred to the fact that the snow ploughing was up by $1.5 million. And this was one of the things they used the word offsetting, but maybe that's not the correct word. So going forward, we are going to see items that you believe are adjusted from the COVID relief fund, and then it won't flow through and end up with a particular, or that item won't drive through to an increase. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, but what I'm saying is rather than bringing in this $600,000, like the small community grant, and saying, okay, we have $600,000 and it's going to flow through to the bottom line, I can only draw in the money if we have offsetting expenses. So for example, the best example is bylaw enforcement officers. When I propose the budget and we do the parking plan, council may say, we want to have a full-time bylaw enforcement officer. So we can put that in the budget, thereby increasing the budget, but then I can draw offsetting COVID funds to offset that, coming to net zero, but it isn't really overall reducing taxation. So I give it the water, like there's no COVID expenses in the water. So I can't take $100,000 or however much I need from the COVID money, put it into revenue and water, have it flow through and say there's no tax increase. Because there has to be an offsetting expense or an offsetting lost revenue. And there was nothing in the utilities. There may be something in the property tax, which will be coming to the March 2nd meeting, but it's a put and a take. Like we can identify extra expenses, things we want to do, and we can offset them with the COVID money, or even we can offset lost revenue. But I can't just bring in money and flow it through to the bottom line and say, oh, we've got $300,000 extra, so we can reduce taxes by $300,000. That's not allowed. It has to be related. And I know it's not audited in the sense that they're going to go back to the invoices, but I have now got from the auditors, it's a detailed chart that you have to show. It's fairly high level, but they give an example of what the chart would look like. It would be lost revenue shortfalls, computer and technology costs to improve connectivity. Basically, they list all you still have to at a fairly high level describe what you use the money for. And that each year we have to show it until it's drawn down to zero. like I said, I was quite excited when I heard it was an unconditional grant, because unconditional means you can use it for anything. And then I think a few people asked the question I did, and then we got another memo saying it's actually not an unconditional grant.
Okay, it'd be interesting how Prince George explained the fact that they mentioned their snow playing budget had gone up. I don't know how they're going to explain that when it's COVID related.
Mhm. Yeah, it's been a challenge with the interpretation, but like I say, the auditors, and particularly the GFOA, have been very helpful. There's an ongoing forum. We just send our questions into the GFOA. I actually asked the question about the wages. I was pleasantly surprised at the answer. Usually you can't claim time that you would have paid anyway, but the argument is that people were diverted from doing other tasks to be able to spend the time on COVID. So that's why they're willing to reimburse us for that time. So I think it'll make more sense, and it will be very useful when, especially with the parking plan. I think once we get council direction on the parking plan, we'll find that a lot of those initiatives that council want to see can be funded with the COVID money. Because our argument is we have these parking issues because of the influx of people to the village due to COVID.
But we also see staff salaries as, you know, they were doing non-core functions to do with COVID, and therefore they couldn't do their core tasks. I'm not sure why that wouldn't have applied to the staff salaries we had in the water utilities, because I'm sure Mr. Jaffer and many of his staff spent a lot of time doing COVID-related stuff, the signages around the beach, more street signage, all of that stuff. So that same argument could have happened here.
When they were doing that, that was their role, though, as public works. So that came from the public works, because you have to show what department it comes from. So it's the public works department's job to do the signage. So that's where the savings are coming from.
They did additional signage because of COVID pandemic, in which case they didn't get to do their core functions. So we could have offset some of those salaries. But the same argument you just used.
I would argue, though, the work that wasn't done wasn't in water, because the water work is essential. So it was other work that didn't get done, but it wouldn't be in the water and the sewer work, because you can't avoid doing that work. Even in the midst of a pandemic, that becomes the top priority.
Thank you.
And then it's the other work that falls off the table.
Thank you very much, CFO. Councillor Abbott, that's the second time the CFO has made that statement. Unless you've got a different line of questioning, I'm going to call a motion.
Call a motion.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any other discussion?
Well, yeah.
I'm calling the motion relative to bylaw number 2, 1971, bylaw number 587, 2021, that it be adopted. All those in favor, aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, thank you very much. Carried. The next item up is the sewer user rates. And the motion is that sewer user rates bylaw number 122, 1984, amendment bylaw number 588, 2021 be adopted as an expediency. I will put forward that motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bain. Open to discussion. Councillor Abbott, same rationale and line of reasoning here?
Yeah, same rationale line of reasoning. If it doesn't cut on these salaries, then I'm going to get the same answer. Still struggle with it, but I'll get.
Let's just confirm that. Same answer, CFO?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Councillor Kilnuff, Councillor Bain, any comments, any questions?
None here.
Okay. Assuming none, I will call the motion. All those in favor, please express so by going aye or yes.
Aye.
Nay.
Councillor Bain,
Sorry, I was harmonizing with Councillor Cunliffe again. I'm aye.
you two are birds of a feather. Thank you very much. Carried. Next piece up, that garbage and recycling collection bylaw number 455, 2013, amendment bylaw number 589, 2021 be adopted. Again, as an expedience, I'll put forward that motion. May I have an indication of a second, please?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on this piece?
I liked Councillor Abbott's proposal. I really did. I'm disappointed that it won't work, but the costs are the costs, and I think we're stuck with it.
Thank you very much. Other councillors, before I call a motion?
Yeah, I'll just say I agree with Fred's sentiments, and I appreciate Councillor Abbott's creativity, and we'll figure out a way to use these funds one way, but if it is the way it is, we need to accept it, and I do think we need to be prudent fiscally and be sure we're putting away for a rainy day, so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunliffe. Councillor Abbott, would you like last word?
Just for a point of clarity on the garbage collection one, it wouldn't apply anyway, because on this particular one, we actually had increases in our rate. And I guess unless the suppliers told us the increases were related to COVID, there's not really much we can use my argument in this particular case.
I agree. I don't think it quite fits the bill on this one. It's substantially.
Can I just
Yes.
ask a quick question to Pam in regards to that? Could it be argued that have people been putting out more recycling, more waste because they've been at home? Therefore, this is maybe built into the increase in our rate, like the rate increase? Is that
No,
feasible?
my understanding, it was just increase in the tipping fees, which we get every year. And I had been given indication actually early in 2020 that this would be the increase probably for 2021.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thought
Of
it was
course,
worth a shot.
There you go. Thank you very much. I will call a motion on this. If you could express your approval by going aye or yes.
I
Passed. Thank you very much. The next piece is new business, and CAO and our corporate officer. I can read this, but I'd like a little bit of help on this one as to we're short one member. I'm sure Councillor Cunliffe's going to recuse on this. So luckily there are three. I'm presuming we're going to use the time. I'm not sure what you would like there. Could you give us some guidance here?
So you need to appoint partial tax roll review panel for the establishment of a partial tax. There are a few provisions in the community charter that provide people affected by a partial tax to have notice of it, to review it, to comment whether or not they want to have their name or address included on the parcel tax. The grounds on which you can complain, it's called a complaint, about the parcel tax are very limited, and are perhaps more substantively oriented, where the parcel tax is being charged on the basis of the taxable area of the parcel or the amount of frontage of the parcel, but where it's just a straight unit rate for each parcel. So it's a flat amount right across the board, split evenly. There's virtually no substantive grounds upon which someone can complain, other than suggesting that the roll is missing a parcel that should be included in the parcel tax roll, or that a parcel has been incorrectly included in the parcel tax roll. So those are the principal grounds for making a complaint. The review panel again has limited grounds upon which to rule on those complaints in accordance with the statute, but there are some time requirements, 14 days notice from the time the notice is sent out to all people on the roll. So we anticipate doing that at the end of the week or by Friday. And part of the resolution that you see before you is for council to pass resolution, as you do every year in respect of the annual report, stating that it is council's opinion that publication 2 times in the village update is reasonably equivalent to that which would be provided by newspaper publication if it were practicable. We will actually go ahead and put in 2 publications in the peak to cover off the legalities just in case, but I think it's fair to say that more people will see the notice from publication in the village update than in the peak in all likelihood. But as well, the notice will go via mail to every parcel owner who is affected, who is put on the parcel tax roll that staff will create in the next couple of days. And so part of what is required under the community charter is that the bylaw requires that council create or direct the creation of a parcel tax roll. And so that was part of the bylaw. And then the statute requires that you create and appoint, establish and appoint a review panel for the purposes of that I've just mentioned. So we need 3 councillors. I've suggested that with the 14-day notice, then there's a 48-hour cutoff period for any complaints prior to the date of the review panel's first meeting. So strangely, the statute requires that council in setting up the review panel also direct the date of the first meeting, but it does. So I've suggested that that would be appropriately not before March 10th. So preferably March 10th or 11th. That's a Wednesday or a Thursday. I suggested maybe 7 o'clock would be appropriate so that if anyone wishes to appear in front of the panel or make a complaint, then
7 p.m.
Yeah, 7 p.m.
And that your preference is March 10th or March 11th?
Yeah.
Pick one.
I think probably looking to council for your calendars and what works for you.
I guess there's only 3 of us in here that's eligible, so I guess we're all nominated. The 10th or the 11th doesn't make any difference to me. I do have one question about something that was just said, and that's the local publication. Why do we use the Peak and not the North Shore News, which is a local newspaper? And I'm sure a lot more people in Lions Bay would read that than the Peak. I don't think I've ever read the Peak, but I read the North Shore News quite often.
Yeah, I don't think that many people see legal notices in the North Shore News either, and the price is about 4 times as high. So that's, you know, for some things we do, and we could, if council would like to see this advertised in the North Shore News, we can do that as well. Not sure of the cutoff date, but we should have enough time. But
For me,
as I said,
for me, it's a more general notification. I just think the North Shore News is more appropriate to people living in Lions Bay, more likely to have read that.
yeah, as I say, in the circumstances here, every parcel owner is going to get a copy via mail as well.
Okay. CAO and also wearing your corporate officer hat. So as I understand this correctly, Councillor Cunliffe does not have to recuse as in be absent. She can be mute during this period. Is that correct?
Well, she's not opining on the content of what the panel does, and I don't think it would be appropriate for her to be appointed as one of the panel members, given her having to recuse herself from voting on the bylaw.
So she can be here but be silent. Is that correct?
Not participating in the establishment of the panel.
Correct. All right. So be it then, Councillor Cunliffe. All right. I think we've got this down. Just as the formality, I'll be reading the motion, the parcel tax roll review panel motion. that the Village of Lions Bay Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel authorized by the Community Charter is hereby established and shall be comprised of the following 3 council members, all of whom shall be appointed for that purpose by council for the 2021 calendar year ending December 31st, 2021. Councillor Neville Abbott, Councillor Fred Bain, Mayor Ron McLaughlin, and that the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel shall fulfill its duties in accordance with the provisions of the Community Charter, and the council establishes 7 p.m. on March the 11th in council chambers as the time and place for the sitting of the panel, which may be in whole or in part via electronic means in accordance with Council Procedure Bylaw number 476, 2015 as amended, and Ministerial Order M192 to the extent applicable. And that advance notice as required by the Community Charter of the time and place for the sitting of the Parcel Tax Panel shall be published in 2 consecutive editions of the Village Update, which provides notice that the council considers is reasonably equivalent to that which would be provided by newspaper publication if it were practical. I'll put forward that motion. Can I have a second? Councillor Bain. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? This is moving a little quicker than I anticipated, and I had a question. And my question is, we've got why council members? We've got 3, you're naming 3 council members, but as I read the Community Charter, section 204, number 2.A, we're to appoint at least 3 persons as the member of the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel. And I'm thinking that if this is loaded with council members, I wonder if anyone who's protesting would have any comfort feeling their review is going to be unbiased. I think that would be the perception. But I see on section 207, it's point 1A, or a decision of the Parcel Tax Roll Review Panel may be appealed to the Supreme Court by a person entitled to notice under section 206, part 3, or by the municipality. I think I feel more comfortable if we're going to have a review panel if some member on there was maybe from the public who had some legal backing, legal experience and insight, so that anyone questioning any of this would know that their concerns are going to be taken with the proper legal scrutiny. So I'm not sure why we're putting 3 council members on it as the bottom line.
It's more or less the standard practice. Technically, you could appoint a non-council member, but it's generally speaking council members who are appointed to sit on such panels. And there's no requirement that any member of the panel have legal background or anything like that. I will be present as the corporate officer for the meeting, as well as the recorder. So there's nothing really in terms of the right of appeal to the Supreme Court. If somebody appeals to the Supreme Court, presumably they're going to get a lawyer to help them with that. And even if the municipality was going to appeal to the Supreme Court, we would hire counsel, legal counsel. So there's no requirement other than that it be conducted in accordance with the procedures that are laid out in the Community Charter and in accordance with council's own procedure bylaw.
Yeah, can I just pass a comment? Thank you, Councillor Bain, for that suggestion. I hadn't realised that. I think it warrants some thought. I mean, why would you not have a resident or another member of the village that has some experience in these kind of matters, not specifically parcel taxes necessarily? I think it's certainly worth exploring.
It obviously can't be anyone who is affected by the parcel tax.
Fair enough. 100 residents out of the question, 1,300 still in. Well, my math was a little wrong. The numbers are a little inaccurate there, but you know what I mean. 100 households in Golden Grove.
I guess the issue at this point in time is that the resolution needs to be made tonight so that we can get going with the notice and the appointed time. So I guess the question would have to be whether or not anybody in the gallery tonight at this meeting would be someone who wishes to step forward and put their name forward to sit on the review panel. Someone who isn't affected by the parcel tax.
Well, if Councillor Bain has someone in mind, would that be appropriate? Would he have to be here?
I think the key piece, Councillor Abbott, that we're in the here and now. It needs to be done today. So the options are, as I'd read, and it's council members only, or one of the gallery would like to participate in this. The key piece that I took away from the CAO, who is also our corporate officer here, is that the opportunity to challenge on this is a very limited basis. I don't think it's a deep technical issue unless the corporate officer tells me otherwise.
Not that I'm aware of.
So there we go. So I'm up for a resident doing it, but I would ask if somebody in the gallery would like to be that person. This is the time to speak up. I see a hand up. Who's that? Mr. Shore, is that your hand up, I think?
Yeah, it's my hand. I'm just weighing in because there aren't many people in the gallery today. So I just thought I'd say that I'd be happy to help if it would be helpful. But I have to say I don't have experience in this area. So it would be a layman's contribution.
I'm sure the council members, they would welcome you. Again, I'll ask.
And you need a decision right now.
Yes, we do.
What kind of time involvement would it involve?
Likely only going to be one meeting. If there is a complaint brought forward that the panel determines requires an amendment of the roll, then there would have to be an amendment of the roll which results in a change in the number of parcels, as opposed to simply somebody asking for their name to be not published. Then there would need to be a second meeting to verify that the change had been effected by staff and that the amended roll was brought forward for certification. So unlikely that there would be a second meeting, but I've just described how it might come about if it were to happen.
And if a resident was to take this role, would they fall under the D&O insurance that the rest of the council is involved with?
It is a body that is covered under the community charter. So without getting direct confirmation from the insurers, yes, I would believe so. I can't see why it wouldn't be.
Well, if it helps, I'll put my name up for that.
Thank you very much. My recommendation, Mr. Shore, thank you very much for offering to come forward. Then I would ask that the members, not to read the whole motion forward, that it'll be Councillor Abbott, Councillor Bain, and resident member David Shore. Thank you very much, Mr. Shore. Councillors, I need a second on that motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any discussion?
No, I'm welcome to have a resident on board. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Thanks.
So Mr. Shore, book your time for March the 11th at 7 o'clock. You'll be in the first meeting if there is one. I'm going to call the motion. All those in favor, please express by saying aye or yes.
Aye.
Councillor Abbott?
Sorry, I was unmuted. Aye.
Thank you very much. It passes. And we can bring Councillor Cunliffe back in. Thank you very much. And we're done on that, which brings us to item number 11, which is public questions and comments. I think everybody in the gallery is familiar with it. 2 minutes per. We can either hand up and I'll give you the green light if there's a couple at the same time. Or you can unmute if you want to be first.
Hello, hi, sorry. Oh, raise my
Hi,
hand.
Tamara. Hi, Tamara. Tamara, thank you very much for raising your hand. Tamara, you've got 2 minutes. You have the floor.
Okay, I have a very simple question. I joined the meeting late because I was working on something else, but my question is around the 600,000 COVID funds. I am just wondering if council is building a long list or a short list of items that can be used for these funds, and when the community will be consulted in terms of how these additional funds, these taxpayer funds will be spent within the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tamara. CFO, I think you've done a partial response already.
I guess that would be what a council response I'll be bringing forward the next phase of the budget, March 2nd. And I was assuming all I can think of now is anything flowing from the parking plan would be funded by COVID, unless there's other ideas. But there is a somewhat limited scope to what we can use the money for, as
Okay.
previously discussed in the meeting.
There you go. Did you hear that, Tamara?
Yes, I did. I would just like to suggest that perhaps the community vehicle Lions Bay neighbors be posted on that, just to solicit some ideas from community members to put forward ideas generated. We're a pretty volunteer, hands-on community, so there might be just outside the box type thinking for really great initiatives that are really sorely needed within the community, especially coming from the strong volunteer base that have become weary, I guess, over the recent past few years. So just some additional public consultation on those additional funds so that they maximize the net benefit back to the community. That would just be my suggestion and request, I guess, to council.
Thank you very much, Tamara, for coming tonight, and thank you for your question, and thank you for your engagement and ideas. Anybody else from the gallery? We've got a few more minutes. I don't see, is there anybody?
I would just like to comment on Tamara's suggestion about engaging residents with ideas. I think it's a great idea. We could, the Facebook and other social media that's out there, be a good place to put something out and see if there's any suggestions.
I'm not sure what staff, from my perspective, Councillor Abbott, and also from Tamara's point, I'm not sure what staff have in mind in the drawdown. I look forward to the March the 2nd meeting to see what they've got planned and what their ideas for the future are. I think that'll be first base, and then we'll go from there. There's no limit on spending the money that in terms of must be done within a year or 2 years. So it's not going anywhere.
I wouldn't mind hearing residents' thoughts, that's all.
Thank you very much. I think the residents have had a chance for the public engagement. It looks like there's nobody else. So we'll say thank you for those that have participated. Much appreciated. Thank you for coming. And we're going to go into in camera in just a minute. So we'll be saying goodbye to our gallery. And we'll be going into in camera for reason of sale of land. And I think that will be covered under that the meeting be closed to the public on the basis of matters to be considered under the following sections of the community charter. And where required, the council does consider that the matters could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they're held in public. And that'll be section 91E and section 92. Can I have a motion to, last piece, can I confirm with my council colleagues that that's reason to move into in-camera and that we will have no reason to report out unless there's information that can be given to the public? Can I have a confirmation with ayes or yes?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much. And we'll say goodnight to the gallery. Thank you and goodbye. And councillors, municipal coordinator, we're going to a separate website so the council members and staff to a different site now, please.